Hi friends, Cole here with episode 50 of Questions for Cole. It is May 5th, 2021. I don't know if anyone made a cake to celebrate the 50th episode. No, doesn't look like it. No cake? Nothing? Okay, that's all right. Well, let's get right to the question for this week then. It's a big one, a serious one. The question is, Cole, what are your thoughts or opinions on MAID, which stands for Medical Assistance in Dying? Good question. This is an important one, and it's a question that many churches and ministers have been struggling with for a long time. To answer this one, I want to start by reading to you a statement from our United Church of Canada. This is actually from back in 2017, and there has been more discussion since then and a few changes to our official statement, but let me start with what we said back in 2017. Here's what it says on the United Church of Canada website. At its May 6th and 7th, 2017 meeting, after reviewing a report submitted by the United Church of Canada's Theology and Interchurch Interfaith Committee, the Executive of the General Council adopted the report as an official statement of the United Church on the subject of medical assistance in dying. In the report, the committee acknowledges there are likely a range of views within the United Church community on this matter. Their challenge in making a statement on behalf of the Church, after holding a consultation that included healthcare professionals, chaplains, ethicists, ministry personnel, and persons with disabilities, was to take into account the range and complexity of the issues raised by both the current federal legislation and the subject of medical assistance in dying itself. We are not opposed in principle to the legislation allowing assistance in dying, and to such assistance being the informed, free choice of terminally ill patients. There are occasions where unrelenting suffering and what we know about the effect of pain on the human body can make medical assistance in dying a preferable option. However, we urge a cautious approach by legislators and medical professionals implementing these laws, as well as by individuals, families, and communities of faith who are considering making use of this new legislative option. To this end, we advocate community-focused and theologically robust discernment on a case-by-case basis, but also ensures the protection and care of those potentially made vulnerable by this new law and others like it. In the past, the United Church of Canada had not taken a formal position on assisted dying or euthanasia. However, with medical assistance in dying now legal in Canada, the Church recognized that its guidance was needed on the many questions that would arise as a result of this legislation. The committee concluded its remarks as follows. The issue of medical assistance in dying is one that needs ongoing reflection and dialogue in communities of faith. It may be chosen as a faithful option in certain circumstances. At the same time, there are many challenges that have emerged since this option became available, challenges both spiritual and practical. While the right of terminally ill patients under the legislation needs to be honored, affirmation of this legislation must be accompanied by protection and care of the most vulnerable in our society, and by universal, equal access to palliative care. It must recognize and respect the challenge medical assistance in dying can pose for healthcare professionals. It must also be accompanied by an affirmation of the dignity and intrinsic worth of every life in relation to community. That was part of our national church's statement from 2017. I have no problem with anything in that statement. That all sounds very reasonable to me. It's a difficult issue, to be sure. Whenever we're talking about how a life is going to end, it's going to be difficult. I think that our church's stance is a fair way of finding a balance between the sanctity of life on one hand and the attempt to ease unnecessary suffering on the other hand. I like the idea of looking at each case on a case-by-case basis because every circumstance is going to be different. It's important that there are laws governing how this happens, and that's a good thing. And I'm glad that there are good people looking at what the law says and whether the law is adequate or whether it still needs to be modified in some way. I also really like the emphasis on being very careful about safeguards for the most vulnerable people and being cautious to make sure that all options are considered, and the importance of including a theological discussion in every case. I will add that I have had some personal involvement in a couple of cases, and in both of those instances I was so impressed with how the process actually worked. There was so much good communication all along the way between the individual, the family, the medical profession. Everyone was very clear about the law, the person's wishes. Everything was done not just professionally, but with the utmost in care and respect for everyone involved. That doesn't make the discussions easy, and we're still dealing with life and death, and with quality of life and pain, and a person's freedom to make choices for themselves while they're still able to. That's all difficult. But as I said, in the two cases I had some involvement in, all of that was done in such a respectful manner, and as well as it possibly could have been. There was theological discussion involved, a lot of it, and prayer. And it felt like God was being included in the conversation, not ignored, that God was invited to be part of the decision making. And that actually made it feel like a holy time, which is what death is, really. Anyway, thanks so much for that question. It's not an easy one, and I'm sure there will be lots of differing opinions about the issue. For me, in any decision we make, and for any difficult topic that we might discuss, if we choose to include God in the conversation and seek guidance from God and from each other, we're heading in the right direction. Since there's still no sign of cake appearing, I guess that's it for today. I will actually be off next Wednesday, so there won't be an episode, but I'll be back with episode 51 in 2 weeks' time. That will be May the 19th. See you then. Take good care, and God be with you.